Great, so we're recording. Welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today on the line I have Christian Kreutz. And Christian, I'm assuming you're in Germany, but I didn't ask before we started this recording. Where are you from?
Yes, you're right. I'm in Frankfurt, in the center of Germany.
Ah, okay, great. And Christian, it says on your LinkedIn profile, you're an author, speaker, strategic advisor, and expert in open and social innovation. So we're going to dive into that. Director of Crisscrossed, and you've created a product, which is how we met, called We Think. We Think with a Q at the end instead of a K. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into all of this, let's start with the first question, which is, what does your virtual office look like? What do you need to get your work done?
Well, to get my work done, I like to work from different locations. So my virtual office are various kind of tools. I used to have a lot of tools because I love to geek around and have a lot of different platforms and tools, but I'm trying to narrow it down these days to make it more easy for me. But as I said, I work in different locations, so I like to work sometimes at home. I have also a co-working office where I work, which is in an innovation lab here in Frankfurt, which is very great and inspiring. And my team colleagues are all distributed. So I'm the only one here in Frankfurt. So my colleagues are in London and in the Far East and the US. So we work remotely all the time. So sometimes, not very often, we have the chance to see each other, but we try. We use various tools to exchange with each other on a daily basis.
So did you set up your team remotely on purpose, or did it just naturally grow that way? How did the team form?
Well, it's interesting. I had this conversation a few months ago with Odesk. I got an interview with Odesk and they asked me the same question. And I don't know, I find it honestly a lot easier nowadays to find interesting, inspiring people through the internet than actually locally. It's a bit of a contradiction because you can walk around locally, you can get in touch with people face to face, you can make conversations. But I made the experience over the years that you can find really, really interesting and inspiring and great people over the internet for various tasks, being developers, marketing experts, and so on. And also, I think Germany is, in terms of internet, not so easy sometimes because you find more, let's say, progressive and creative people outside of Germany sometimes easier, I get the feeling. So I take heavy use of these platforms, freelancer platforms, start with a project, and then if it works out pretty good, then it turns out to a long-term cooperation.
And you mentioned Odesk. Is that one of the platforms you use a lot?
Yes, I think it's now they have changed the name. I don't know the new name.
Oh yeah, Upworthy. It's Upworthy.
Upworthy, exactly, and it's with Elos together. Yes, I do use that, or it's about, but no, that was especially beginning, but now it's also about personal connections and stuff like that. Yes, but I like it. It's I think it's surprisingly amazing how well it can work to work remotely. I mean, I worked with a graphic designer for 6 years. I've never seen her, and we have a wonderful working relationship, and it's absolutely fantastic.
I'm a big fan myself. I've used Odesk and Elance before it was Upworthy a lot, and I found it also remarkable the kinds of people that you can find online. The guy that produces this podcast, in fact, I found on Elance. So,
nice.
So I want to talk about We Think, but first, while we're on this topic, I've got to ask you in terms of hiring practices, when you're looking for somebody who would be great to work with remotely, what do you look for when you're on Upworthy or any of these platforms?
I look, most importantly, how do they present themselves in the internet? So I think this is for me an entry point for trust, And for instance, for programmers, for me, it's very important that they're involved on pages like GitHub. So they might have, published software code for themselves, they're very involved into some community, wherever it is. Are they involved in online communities? Can you see their involvement there? That shows you a lot about their character and what they're doing. So I think that's so. Alone the profile on these platforms for me is not enough. I want to see a presence across the internet, an online presence. What have they done? Just not references which might look nice, but what do they do in their daily action online? This tells a lot about the story, a lot about the people's background, and you can separate quite quickly who's more interesting and less.
Yeah, agreed. It's sort of a two-edged sword. There's some people that don't want to have such a presence online, but they're doing great work, but they don't want to be online so much. And then there's those of us who are just everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there are many people, especially on these platforms, who are not very visible. So it makes it difficult. So you got a good point there. I think it is most of them. They focus on their presence or their portfolio on these platforms, and then it's difficult because they showcase some references. It's difficult to find out. But I guess then you really have to try it out with a testing project, and have to work together on it. But to me, it's very interesting. There are many factors who play in. I think it's experience after a while. I don't know how it is for you, but I really, you quickly kind of find out how people, interact when it comes to agreements, quite quickly, how they rely on these, on agreements, and what do they need, if they emphasize on trust in between, or if they need to have contracts and stuff like that, you can quickly see how people interact, how experienced they are, and then you can see how good you can work together.
Yeah, reputation goes a long way on the internet, that's for sure, and
Right.
reliability. So let's talk about We Think. I think it's a super interesting product. Let's talk about what it does, and how you got started with this.
Well, I got started with it because I worked in an organization for 5 years, doing knowledge management and lots about internet. And yeah, I saw the potential. At that time, it was called Web 2.0. Then it turned out to be social media. But I saw the power of what it brings to employees, to people, in terms of communications. You always talk about people come to organizations, they're supposed to be empowered, they should make their own decisions, work self-responsible. But then the logic of organization is still very much top-down hierarchical. Decisions are making at the top, and employees are very often frustrated that things that just don't turn out that how it's supposed to be. That they really horizontal communicate to each other and work to each other. How we do it now, and many do over the internet. How collaborate openly. About open source software or whatever project. So I saw that and saw the potential, but I realized that using various different tools, there are many out there, but most are quite complicated, and I mean, we're coming now into a time where I think where platforms diversify for various different purposes. There's just not one such tool for everything, you can use Facebook for everything, or Twitter, I think we're realizing now that there's so many different needs and so many different approaches we can take to online collaboration, and these approaches need different platforms, different methodologies. And around open and social innovation, if you really want to get groups engaged, for a common goal, for a common cause, for example, an organization saving the usage of paper, an environmental cause or whatever, you can come up with a quickly tool to just throw in ideas. It's very easy to do that, of course. But what we found out is, and that's how my motivation came into developing We Think, it needs a bit of a methodology, a process, to get people involved and to come from an idea to really develop it to something meaningful that you have actually impact, and you can get the best idea through and implement something meaningful.
So when you say innovate, you said something that just I had to write down, was innovation methodology. So is there, what is the method? I mean, I know this is a big question, so I'll start it by saying that. But what is the methodology for innovation in an organization?
Well, I think there are different approaches to it, but it's first of all, it's the most important. It's the focus on people and culture. It's like providing the right ecosystem and culture that people can share ideas and develop on ideas, and that's where we're coming to the start of this question. These tools, social media or whatever you want to call them, these collaboration tools allow you amazing things, that you can work horizontal together in organizations. You can work together on ideas, and yeah, independent of the hierarchies, really that all people who have expertise can work together on it, and what we realized is, but just throwing the ideas in, that's often what is the use case, just throwing some ideas in, then comes the jury, the managers say, this one is the best, we're going to do it. That's often not enough, and that's also not using the full power of online collaboration. What is interesting is once the ideas are in, then that people start working, discussing, collaborating around the ideas, refining them, optimizing them, thinking about them from different angles, that's where the whole kind of, energy comes into it, and there I think we found out that really needs, or kind of methodology, can help, and twisting a platform the way that people can really go through such steps, to come up with a rough idea to really meaningful and sustainable idea to implement. That's, I think, what I'm talking about methodology.
So it sounds awesome. So it sounds like with We Think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that anybody in an organization or group, whatever, whoever's using it, it's a place for, it's like idea management, right? So you can throw in your ideas into maybe a pool, and then people vote and discuss and choose and optimize. Am I getting it right?
Yes, definitely. Although I think we're moving away from the concept of management. It's like knowledge management, right? It's like it gives you this illusion that you can kind of manage codified knowledge. You have these kind of artifacts or products of ideas, and then you kind of manage, you move them around between people. So I think when we talk about open and social innovation, by open we mean that it's open, it's fully flourishing, flying around in an organization, so people can absolutely tap in or tap out, whatever they want, but they can engage however they're interested in. And social, we mean, that they really interact, that they highly collaborate on it. They're really interested, to make the ideas better, to work on something, and that's less management. That's in contrary. That means that management lets the flow of people just develop, just providing the ecosystem that people can really establish themselves. They can really, flourish around and make the best out of these ideas.
I love that you take the word management out of it, because you're right, actually. With this kind of thing, how can you possibly manage like this pool of ideas and creativity? You're right. It's totally the wrong word for it.
Well, you're also right, because at the end you have to manage it, because you have to decide which idea you're going to do and which you're going to implement, and that needs resource and stuff like that. So you're also really right. You need that kind of management part of it, but maybe in the beginning it's more free floating, and that's very important too.
Who are the kinds of people that are using this at the moment? What organizations are coming to you right now, and why? Why are they?
The typical approach I idea to competitions, hackathons and stuff like that, which are very popular at the moment, where you come up with a theme or a challenge, and then you use, of course, the online approach to reach out to a large community. Nesta in the UK, that used it, for instance, to look for energy saving in households using open data. So they had a specific theme, and they reached out Europe-wide specialists around household energy and wanted to develop applications using open data to save energy. And then, you had a few weeks of process of collaborating on the ideas, and then you met in the weekend, the best ideas. Those teams met on a weekend to further collaborate, develop these ideas to create startups. Something completely different is when you go into an organization, for instance, and some wise, I find very inspiring top manager there decided to ask the questions of the future, how the organization shall develop and what is the potential of the organization to their own employees. And they were thinking, it was quite of a large organization, a media organization. There were 6,000 people. And they were thinking like maybe 200 or 300 people will participate. But in the end, like almost 1,000 people participated, and
wow,
1,000 comments came in. So people were really like, it was like opening the door and people just flushed in, It was just like asking inside an organization widely with open question led to a lot of creativity and ideas, to make things better or different.
Wow, that's really inspiring, I think, to hear that many people wanted to voice and participate and improve. And when you get that kind of a response, that I would think as an organization, regardless of what the response is, like that kind of engagement is really special. It sounds like.
Yes, I think it is, and that's, I think, the philosophy behind. We're just not a platform. I think we're believing in the process, this horizontal process. That I think we believe that in every person in an organization, there's a lot of creativity and energy for ideas and to make things different and better. And I think it's just the way of asking it and providing the right culture and ecosystem to let people flourish, these ideas.
Yeah, I heard at a conference recently, somebody said most people start a job totally inspired and enthusiastic, and it's really the job of the managers to not demotivate the employee. You start motivated, right? You don't start demotivated. So it's usually the company culture or something that demotivates people to participate and engage less and less. So that's seems to be the case. It's showing the case with what you're saying.
Yes.
So what is hard about doing this online?
I mean, this involves a lot of culture, right? You have to be, as the management who decides to do such a process. I mean, if you do it internally, right? You have to be very open, huh? And to let the room open, for all kinds of ideas or feedback, because that could be also negative feedback, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be always positive feedback, or ideas not always positive for change. There are always losers and winners for ideas and stuff like that. So you need quite of openness in the culture from management, and that is not often given. They want to be on top of the ideas. They want to be on top of the decisions. In these open innovations, social innovation, if you want to call it, you don't necessarily know the end before. You don't necessarily know where it develops to. What are the best ideas and what are the consequences of it? So that makes it difficult. Of course, this is the whole part of open collaboration. I think we need a lot of time thinking in that people are willing to accept these types of processes.
When I interviewed Ericsson, they said with it, and they have the innovation management system, idea boxes, and Magnus Carlsen said that there was an age gap between the people that wanted to contribute, and that was the older generation wanted to keep their ideas secret because they were afraid that either somebody would steal them or that somebody would make fun of them. And that was usually most of the case. Whereas the younger generation was like, I have 100 ideas, take them all. I just want to just pick the one that's best. Here's 1,000 things, because they're already used to sharing. Do you see that on your platform, or do you see any sort of generational gap between the people that are comfortable with this kind of system?
That's a good question. I think in general, I'm highly skeptical about this generational gap, to be honest, because I've seen extremely well-advanced, internet-friendly, elderly, and young people who are really skeptics and distant to the internet. So I've seen it across the generations. But I think in the younger generation, I think they're really expecting the kind of transparency. They're going in organizations, for them it's absolutely. They're thinking it's absolutely normal that it has to be transparent and somehow horizontal. They don't accept anymore this kind of hierarchies and top-down approaches. They think this is not logical to what has been said before, something like this statements. And I think the older generation, they just lived with it as it was, And I think we have this strong kind of force, especially to the internet, in terms of open collaboration, which is kind of sneaking into organizations now, which many thought would never happen, but we're going to see it, and it's going to happen now, and we can see many signs of it. But in terms of using it itself, I've seen it across the generations. I've seen older who are really super interested and they really share ideas, and youngers and vice versa. So I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I just was curious if there was any sort of group that was more resistant to using it than others, but it sounds like it's the managers that are maybe more than anybody. And is it just ego with the managers? Is it what's getting in the way?
Well, I think we have to learn a lot. I mean, technology takes really a long time to sink in, right? There's this saying, I don't know who said it, to be honest, like technology needs about 30 years to really sink in. Like email now is almost 30 years old and everybody's really familiar with email, SMS, pretty much. But open collaboration is way more complex, acting on these platforms, it will take more time, we're finding now out, and I'm talking about the methodology, it has to be, to which extent it has to be very transparent, people have to have trust in it, You can do a lot online, but there is also a lot of difficulties. It's anonymous, you cannot just see the person, you cannot talk to the person in the face. Maybe in organizations you would see the person at lunch, but normally you're not. So there are also obstacles online, but I think we have to learn and we have to find the right means and measures, to gain trust into these open innovation processes, and then that will make it much easier, to kind of put the obstacles away. What I can definitely see, and I'm also involved in citizen participation projects, there are always these people who say, people are just criticizing and they're saying all these negative things. And I've worked in processes with large groups anonymously who don't even know each other, and publicly. And if you really are on a topic which people are concerned about, and that's important. If it's a topic they're interested about, and this is very important also, whichever context you do this, then people are constructive. They're very constructive. They're really, dealing on the topic, and there is so little negative speech or destructive kind of dialogues, there's really a lot of positive intrinsic motivation to convince people to do things. I've seen really long conversations online to really work together, even if you're in different opinions. But it is important that it really is something which matters to people.
Right, people really have to care about the topic and want to make it better. And yeah, I can imagine. And what's the biggest resistance that you're getting to taking We Think into an organization? Where do you guys hit the resistance, if any?
There is of course a lot of resistance, because you're offering a platform which opens, as I said, opens wide the space, to let people collaborate openly and discuss everything, more or less, it's unrestricted in a sense, and not every organization is ready for it. I heard the other day just of an organization in intranet that they have now a commenting system, and somebody commented, and the communication department called them out and said, like, why did you comment on the topic such, this is still not unusual. This is still happening, right? So, if you open up the room for such an open platform where people in an organization talk about everything, let out their opinion. And again, it's very constructive. People are just way too afraid of it. In my experience, it's mostly very constructive. Then you need, especially management and people who dare, jump into cold water and who really want to experiment with it. I think that you gain a lot out of it, so it's worth the effort.
How do you convince people if you have a manager maybe who's hesitant to try, but they're kind of curious? How do you build trust in the outcome of the platform for people so that they can take that next step?
Well, I think you gain a lot. You gain the sympathy and the ownership of people. I give you an example. We worked with one organization. We did something totally different. They wanted to develop a new policy on an issue. The typical process in an organization: you develop a policy. You make normally maybe a draft of the policy, and then you send it out by email, and you said like, oh, so if you have some feedback or so, send it back to me, and then I'm going to make the final version from top management. I'm generalizing heavily here. So what we did is, we put this draft on a platform, so people were, and then sent invitations out to over 200 people, and they could either, comment on the draft, on each of the issues, or they could add new additional points on the policy which they thought would be very important, and then you had different public, transparent conversations, about different policy issues, and some participants decide, well, I think some important part is missing, so they added it, in a quite short process of 2 weeks, an interesting discussion span around various issues. Then we made a few days of prioritization where they can vote it up, the most important parts. And then the initiator, the department manager, or the team, they wrote together the new draft of the policy, out of all this feedback and conversations. And they had a new version of the policy, and that got largely accepted. And you have now a complete different ownership by all the employees, because they were all involved in the discussion. And the huge advantage of the initiator is also, he can always say now, well, if you are unhappy, well, we did a 3 weeks process. Everybody was able to speak, It was a very transparent and very highly participatory process. And this is this policy has probably will be in place for many years to come. So I think it is quite an investment for 3 weeks, but it's well worth the effort, and it's totally different if you're sending it, to all of the participants by email and you're receiving the feedback. You're totally missing out the whole conversation around it. And there were many synergies and interesting aspects people haven't thought about, That is another win-win.
Just the idea that you can have over 200 people contributing, editing, and having conversations around one document, I think is so cool. I mean, in the old days, just 5 years ago, but you would be sending a Word document, like you said, emailing it back and forth, and with the highlighting all the changes and it's sort of this horrible way. And now just having the conversation about something, that sounds really exciting.
I mean, some people, they would say, you could do it in a wiki and so on, which is totally true, but that is a good example I always take. But a wiki, the problem is like you need a very advanced kind of internet culture, If you were able, like 20 or 30 people who are able to work, collaboratively on a wiki document, this is possible, but I think it's only possible of people who are very much advanced into open collaboration, who are totally open, that other people just erase content and so on. So what I think, and it comes back to the topic of methodology, you have to find the right methodology to take all the group together into it, that, the people who are not so much into internet, maybe resistant people to it, welcome them all, embrace them all, and find the right methodology. They can all contribute and they feel comfortable about the process, make it transparent, and then develop together something such as a policy,
Yeah, I have to say my wiki experiences sounds the same as yours. I'm a wiki lover. I created more wikis myself than everybody else in the last company I worked in, all put together. So I was a huge lover. And you're right. It's for some reason it just takes it's a more sophisticated crowd of people that gravitate towards the wiki and that type of work. So yeah, sometimes it's a perfect tool, but if nobody uses it, it's not the perfect tool. So we have to move on.
Yeah.
But you're right. What about security issues? Because I run into security issues a lot in companies. They say we can't turn on our videos, we can't talk to each other. The information has to be, it can't go off our server. How do you deal with security issues, or do you deal with these kind of security issues at all?
Yes, of course. We are software as a service, so you can just book us and subscribe and book an instance or an own account, an idea space, and then you can get started. And it depends, of course, very much on the topic, right? If it's about papers, any paper saving, it's not a confidential, very much topic, But if it's internal change management, it's a totally different matter, right? So yes, I think there is this understanding that anyway most of the stuff moves to the cloud, So you have there are a very good mechanism now to protect data, But it depends very much on the topic. If it is a very confidential topic, you might have to really move the server directly to the client and stuff like that. There are different measures to take to secure the data and so on. But mostly these topics around open social innovation, they're per se very open and social. They're very free floating, and then in these conversations you not necessarily address such confidential topics. You might have about patent issues, if you come really into deep idea competitions and stuff like this. But yeah, then you have to find different solutions.
Okay. Yeah, it's just something I run into, and it's a hard question to answer sometimes. They say, well, my organization doesn't let me turn on video. And I think, oh, geez, you should fight the organization, maybe. That's maybe bad advice.
Well, what I'm saying often is, and of course, this is an issue for organizations that want to protect themselves, but nowadays, and more organizations don't work in this isolated silo themselves, and it comes also to the topic of remote work, Organizations are also huge remote networks, because you have stakeholders, you have partners, you work in so many different settings with outsiders, and you always have to work them, and you will in the future work more intensively online with them. So you cannot just have these technology one silo of an organization. You will have to have a lot of bridges out there, to get people into it. So there will be anyway, there's a request that will be anyway need more different solutions.
Yeah. I think those days of the silos are quickly coming to an end. The people that are all working in the same building in the same thing. It just doesn't seem. At least I hope. I'm so biased, though. It's hard for me to be objective at all about these things. So, but for people who are just starting out, what advice would you give them for either working remotely or doing this ideas innovation in their companies? What would be the first things if people wanted to check this out? What would they do? How would they prepare themselves?
I think the most important thing is, if you are really motivated to work with your colleagues and you work on something and you want to make a very truly new and different experience to work open and collaboratively with your colleagues, even though if they tell you over the internet it really doesn't work, I can tell you there are really means and measures to work really interestingly in fascinating projects. What you need to know, what you have to figure out is what is the right and intriguing topic. It has to be something where that is a burning issue. That's something really people want to talk about, and find a solution. And of course, you have to convince the top management also that they say, yes, we want to invest something into it, because you have to invest some time, to facilitate the process, and you have to invest, of course, on resources to implement some of the solutions, because then otherwise the discussion process leads to nothing and people would be disappointed. So that's important, But I can assure you, it's a truly empowering effect. I mean, in this media organization example, people were just, the management was absolutely surprised. There were so many ideas coming in that they had really issues and problems to filter them down, to cluster them, because there was just so much flying around suddenly. They're very surprised. And that's often what happens. Seriously, they always think, there's not so many ideas coming in, and then suddenly they say, well, there's so much more that we expect, So that's, they underestimate the creativity of their employees.
It's a great problem to have. To me,
Yes.
It's like too many ideas. Oh no! I'd rather work with that than the opposite. That's for sure. That's for sure. What are some of your favorite tools that you use for working with your colleagues?
So remote work, as I said in the beginning, I used to work a lot of tools, and what's my lessons learned is, to really kind of minimize it to very few ones. So I work now with a project management tool. It's from Teamwork. It's really nice. Although it has a certain logic, I don't care anymore whether it has this or that logic. I try to move my head around how it could work for us. So, and it's really good. What I really like is I automate a lot. So I let a lot of, for Zapier or other kind of automation tools, I let automate a lot of issues to this tool. To be an example, to be more precise, if comments come up on our blog, they automatically become tickets on our project management platform to my colleagues, so they answer it. So I'm trying to automate a lot of processes, so we don't have to do it manually all the time, but we have one entrance door, one kind of field where we all go in and we all see what's happening at the moment. Even though if it's something missing, I don't try to experiment with just another new thing and another new thing here. I'm trying to make the best out of one. That's my lesson learned. I really like.
So to minimize the number of tools that you simplify and minimize the number of tools that you use.
Yes, absolutely. I'm more now these days in remote work into what I really like these months is SOP, standing operation procedures. I really like that. That helps us a lot because in remote work you can talk, and it's important to have calls and to talk with each other. But of course you don't have that advantage to be in one office. You just lean over and talk about an issue. So you have to compensate this, that you cannot just ask all the time. So standing operation procedures will help you really to try to codify it as best as possible and isolate processes, and everybody knows how it works, there's somebody sick, somebody else can take over, and to optimize it over time. So, and yeah, that things can work much easier. I think that helps that things work much easier remotely.
You said you worked with people in the London, in the Far East, and in the US. So I have to ask, how do you deal with time zones and issues around time zones on your team? Everybody seems to be struggling with it.
Yes, that's the same for us.
Struggle also, yeah. I haven't found an answer yet. Like somebody's going to get up late, somebody's going to get up early. There's just no other way to do it.
And there's suddenly sunlight changing or something happening. So it's tricky. I think we're trying to differentiate in roles and not meeting all together. And technology people just meet at one time. So it's not too many people at once who have to meet, which sometimes makes it easier in terms of time zones. That's one way to do it. To separate the issues. And as I said, SOP, and at least to try to codify, to write down a lot of stuff. Makes it possible that you don't have to talk and call so much about issues the whole time, right? So when there's really an issue again rising up, you really try at the end of the call to talk about, so how was that solved and how can we kind of, avoid it by the next time? Let's look as you have already a procedure for it, and then write it down, So the goal is that in the end, when you call, you also have some time to really socially talk. It's not always problem solving or something like this. It's also, you put leave the burden away more and more, and also have time to talk about nice things in between, which is very important remote work.
Right. We can really be business, and
yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
you have to ask about your kids and sports and Yeah.
Exactly, and that's very important to talk about as well.
Yeah, so making time for that. Great advice. So final question, where we're reaching the end. I already see myself going over, but you have so many interesting things. I've been taking furious notes as we've been talking,
Okay,
but
good to know.
final question, which is, if people want to learn more about you and get in touch with you more about We Think, what are the best ways of finding more information and getting in touch?
Well, I think our blog, because we really, for almost 2 years now, really make a lot of effort to write in our blog on wethink.com. And our blog, we really share a lot of resources across the web about open and social innovation. You know, it's some buzzwords. You know, we try to make meaning out of it. What does it really mean? You know, what is behind it? And we share a lot of resources, links into the web. What's out there? You know, what could you do with it? And I think that's really the best place to look what we're doing. And yeah.
Great. The We Think blog, I'll put it in the show notes for people to
Great.
check.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that I didn't cover or didn't ask that you hoped I did?
Oh, it sounded absolutely interesting. I really liked it myself.
Okay, good. Great. Well, then, until next time, everybody, be powerful.
Ciao.